Hello, this is Angela Anderson. Thanks for joining me for tonight's acrylic painting tutorial. In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to paint this frosty winter floral, I guess I'm calling it, Frosty Floral. It's the first of our beginner series. We're going to be going over some basic acrylic painting techniques over the next few weeks, and so this is our first of that series. I'm really excited to share this with you. I've got my husband Mark with me.
Hey there, everybody.
He's not in chat today, so if you've got questions while we're painting, we'll try to get to all of them and answer them. So let's get started. All right, so first off, I was just going to talk a little bit about your basic setup and the kind of materials that you're going to want if you are brand new to acrylic painting. Tonight, I'm going to be using a canvas from Fredrix. This is a Fredrix mixed media canvas board from 9x12 size. Really, whatever size you want is fine. I would say if you are just starting out, though, that you don't really probably want to start out with huge canvases for practice paintings, unless you are going to be, setting it up in your house somewhere. If you're just practicing and first learning how to paint, something like this size, 8x10, 9x12, something like that is probably going to be just fine for practice kind of paintings. And then when you get comfortable with painting and you want to, do something a little bit more special and put it in your house, then you can, size up to a larger size. You'll probably also want to have some sort of a practice journal. I use the mixed media journals. This one's from Strathmore. This one is from Canson. Either one of these are going to be fine for you. You just want something that says mixed media or watercolor on it. They'll be thicker papers and you'll be able to paint right onto it and practice before you actually go to your canvas. It will save you a lot of trouble. Now, we'll say that paper will soak up your water. So just kind of be aware of that when you are painting on paper and practicing these techniques, that you'll want to use a little bit more water. So we're going to be using that later when I show you some of the line work and things like that, what we're going to be doing. All right. So once you've got your canvas set, you can either lay it flat on a surface, or I'm using just these little foam wedges. They're good for the camera angle that I use. So that's the only reason I use them. I did not use them before I started painting on canvas, on videos. So if you don't, you don't have to get these. They're just for a camera work. I normally would just hold it in my hand, in one hand, and paint with the other hand. And that way I could turn it and do whatever I wanted to with it and didn't have it on an easel. If you prefer an easel, use it by all means, whatever is comfortable for you. But I prefer just holding them. If they get bigger than like 16x20, you're probably going to want to use an easel because they're going to be too big to start to hold after that. So, all right, let's go over our brushes. Tonight, we're going to just be using a few basic brushes. All of these are going to be in my brush guys list down in the description. There's a link to thebrushguys.com, and there's a code Angela Fine Art that you can use for 5% off. This is not a commercial. I'm just telling you in case you're interested. But I wanted to let you know that that's available. All these brushes are in that set. And it's a beginner basic set. I think it's $50, and it's got like 9 brushes in it, something like that, 8 or 9 brushes. All right, so the first one here we're going to be using is a number 10 bright, and that's just going to be kind of for our main background area. And then we're going to use a 1/4" angle shader, a 18-aught short liner, and a number 1 round. And those will be for our details. The liner will be the one that's most important for our thin lines, and then the number 1 round will be for some of the thicker lines. And we'll also be using the angle brush for some of our lines. And I'll show you different ways to do lines. And often that's one of the trickiest parts for beginners, is kind of getting their lines straight. So we'll be going over that in detail tonight. And then we're also going to be using a 10-aught bristle fan just to do some splattering on the canvas. All right, those are our basic brushes, and we'll be, as we go on in this series, we're going to be using different brushes, and I'll show you how to use each one. Those are just the ones we're going to use tonight. And you're also going to probably want some sort of a sponge. You can also use just a paper towel. So if you don't have a sponge like this, just grab a paper towel, but something to kind of help you blend. That's all you're going to need it for. All right, and then if you want to sketch on your canvas, I use different things to sketch. So school chalk is fine for that. Or I've got all surface pencils. These are water soluble, all scribe, they're called. Scribe all, I'm sorry. And then these ones are pastel chalk. And this one is a graphite aquarelle Faber-Castell HB. So they're all basically, the thing they have in common is that they will all dissolve as you paint over them. A regular pencil will not do that. So if you use a regular school pencil on here, it will show up underneath your paint. So I never use regular school pencils. I always use either like a water soluble pencil like these two, or a chalk pastel or chalk regular school chalk, and those will dissolve into your canvas. All right, we're going to go over traceables next week. So if you're interested in that, stay tuned. Next week we'll be tracing on some things, and we'll go into detail about that. But today we were just going to do some basic drawing. All right, I've also got a palette knife, and I've got a pen for signing. If you want to use a pen for signing, I get questions about it a lot. Pigma this is Sakura brand. Pigma FB is the kind that I use. It's in our Amazon store down below if you're interested in that. There's a whole beginner's supplies beginner supplies list in our Amazon shop. So it'll have all the stuff that we're using tonight just about. Okay, I'm going really fast, but I want to go fast because I have to get to the painting part. That's the fun part, right? But I want to at least kind of go over a little bit about different kinds of paints and what kind you're going to want to use for what we're going to be doing. So you've probably seen these. These are craft paints. I call them craft paints. They're also called hobby paints, or they're just a basic acrylic paint. They're very thin, and they're not very pigmented. So you'll get good results, but they don't do all the techniques that we'll be doing later on. They'll be fine for tonight. So if this is what you want to start with, that's fine. But as we get going in this series, you're probably going to want to invest in some paints that have a little bit more body to them. So these would be like for a hobbyist, hobby crafter, first time painter, or first time using acrylic paints. Then if you're really serious about like wanting to get into painting and learning a little bit more, I would suggest investing in one of the Arteza or Liquitex Basics sets. They have these sets. Liquitex Basics is the one that I suggest for a lot of my beginners, but we've also used the Arteza in several of our videos, and I really like those as well. So I'm just more familiar with the Liquitex Basics, and I know that they are light fast, so that if that's a concern for you, you might want to get these ones. And they come in these little bottles, and then as you run out, you can invest in the larger tubes of the more professional paints if you're really into it and you want to keep on going. So that brings me to these ones. And I use a couple different brands. Liquitex and Golden are my two favorite. Golden is kind of the one that I use. It's probably the gold standard in basic acrylic paints for professional quality painters. It's just got a really thick, heavy texture. It's really buttery, and it works really well. It's what I use for 90% of my paintings, probably 99% of my paintings. So you'll see me using this a lot during the series. But if you do not have these ones, you can substitute for any of these medium body acrylics for the same techniques that work just about the same. Not so much for these ones. These ones are too thin to do some of the techniques. So just kind of throwing that out there. You'll have to adjust a little bit. And I do have a video called Mixing Different Types of Acrylic Paints, I think. And it talks about how to mix the three different types, the hobby, student, and professional level paints. So you might check that out if you are going to be using those craft paints. You might want to check that video, because it kind of goes more into detail about what the differences are and stuff. All right, so this is Golden's kind of equivalent to the thinner paints. It's their fluid line of acrylics. I will be using this to do the line work. The thing with these is that they are way more pigmented than the craft acrylics. So even though they're thin, they still have the same amount of paint per square inch or whatever as the heavy body acrylics do. They're not thinned out with water. They're actually super highly pigmented. They're just a more fluid base. So, all right, let's get going here. Hope I didn't go over that too quickly, but I know that was a lot of information to throw out there. You can rewind if you need to. And you can always ask questions in the comments, and I will definitely be reading the comments, and we'll be using those to kind of go over things later on in the series. So if you've got anything that you want me to go over, I'm super into, taking questions. Okay. One other thing about canvases. So I'm using a panel. I really like them because they're easy to store. I can pop them into a frame. I'll show you the frame here. These are the kind that I usually get. I get them at hobby stores or online, and they don't have glass. You do not want to put acrylics under glass because they will stick to glass. Acrylics are sticky. Even after they've been varnished, they will stick to glass. So don't ever do that. But I just use these little... I've got a little gun, but if you take it to the hobby store, if you take your painting to the hobby store, they will do this for you. They will stick it into one of these frames for you, and they'll just nail it right in, and it's like a couple dollars to put on the little hanger, and you're good to go. So I really like the panels for beginners. They come in these little like multi-sets. Fredrix has them all, I'm sure if you've ever been to a craft store, you've seen these. So these are good. The paper ones will warp. The ones that I'm using are more professional quality. They've got a hard core, so they will not warp as much. But if you're just practicing, these are going to be just fine for you. You want to step up to a little bit more sophisticated type of canvas. You can use like a regular canvas. They've got different sizes that have, different thickness of the widths. These are both gallery wrapped. Gallery wrapped just means that the sides do not have staples. So if you see a canvas that's got staples on the sides, those are going to be a lower quality canvas. The ones that have it wrapped around and are stapled on the back are going to be higher quality, and they're a little bit nicer because you don't have to actually frame them. You can just hang them straight on the wall. That's probably why they call them gallery wrapped. You can just hang them like a gallery on your wall. So,
or just bring them to the gallery and hang them,
exactly.
and you'll be allowed to do that.
Right. Right. Throw your price tag on it. Leave it. Leave your card. No, that's terrible. These ones are called Splined. So this is just a little rubber gasket that goes around here, and it's hiding the staples. So if you see gallery wrapped Splined, that's what that means. This one's just plain old gallery wrapped, and it's got the staples on the back. Either one's fine. Both really good quality canvases. And then, yeah, that's all I want to say about canvases for now. And if you've got other questions about canvases, you can leave those down. I do not gesso my canvases. A lot of artists do. You can do that if you want a little bit smoother surface. But I don't tend to do that. So that's totally up to you. Okay, one more thing about our setup. I like to set my canvas straight directly in front of where I'm sitting. So set it in a comfortable spot right in front of where you're sitting or standing, whatever. And then I'm right-handed, so I have my water and my paper towel and my palette all on the right-hand side. You don't want any of these three on your crossover on the left-hand side if you're crossing over your canvas. If you were left-handed, maybe, that'd be fine. But you definitely do not want to be taking water from over the top of your canvas over this way. What that will do is it'll cause drips, and it'll also cause you to get your hand and all kinds of other things into your canvas. So always have it on the right-hand side. And I like to have a large, like a sturdy water jar with a lot of water in it, because you're going to be mixing a lot of if you're doing a large project like we're doing, you're not going to want a tiny little cup of water. It's going to get dirty real fast, and you're going to get sediment in it, and then it's going to muck up your mixing later on. You're going to have to clean it out often. So just get yourself a nice big tub of water, a pickle jar or something like that. It doesn't have to be this fancy metal one that I use, but just something large, and also that's really sturdy, that's not going to get tipped over. So don't do like a tall water glass that's going to get knocked over, because I've done that. Been there, done that. It's not fun. So do you not want to have to clean up a large, easily tipped over water that's got full of paint particles all over your nice clean floors and things. Okay, so yeah. And if you are splattering, one other thing, you probably want to protect your work surface, and don't do this, on your your grandma's nice table. All right, so paper towel really close. You're going to go through a lot of these. You can use regular towels too. I've had them, and I use them too. I'm just lazy, and I like to use the paper towels because they're just easier to clean and or throw away when you not have to clean. All right. Let me move these over to the side here, out of the way. Oh, and then one other thing about the palette knife is if you want to use palette knife for mixing, we're going to use it a little bit tonight to do some of our mixing. So they're kind of handy to have. I like ones that are really flexible. They're a little bit easier to manipulate the paint, I find, especially if you're using a hard surface palette like I'm using. Pallets, you can use like a foam plate. I've used these for years. They work perfectly good. Egg cartons, it's got the little egg cartons. If you're using like really fluid paints like a craft acrylic, those are great because they keep your little paints all separated. What else? Well, there's paper palettes. I don't have mine out, but there's a paper palette that I've used that works really well. Do not use a fibrous like paper plate that is not sealed, because it'll just suck all the moisture out of your paint. So that's the only kind of palette that I would say don't use. There's also plastic palettes that work fine too. So glass palettes are nice because they scrape clean, but these are like, I wouldn't do this unless you're 100% sure you're going to be painting a lot, because really something like this is going to be just fine. And I did not get this until somebody actually bought it for me. So yeah. All right. That's it. Let's get going here. All right, so I'm going to start out with the heavy body acrylics, and we're going to, when we do our line work, we're going to use the thinner paints. Yes, let me zoom in here. I'm going to move this down right there. There we go. All right. I've got carbon black and titanium white. Carbon black, Mars black, any of your blacks are going to work fine. You could even use a color here. It doesn't have to be black, just as long as it's a dark color, or you can even add a little bit of color to your black if you wanted it slightly tinted, like a blue or something would be really pretty. It'd give it kind of a little like a smoky blue feeling. So that's totally up to you. All right, I'm going to start out by just grabbing a little bit of the black, just a little, and a little bit of the white, a little bit more of the white than the black here. And I'm just going to mix kind of a medium gray. And I'm probably going to need a bit of this, so I might actually just kind of go straight to my palette. We'll see how this goes. But all right, that'll be good enough for now. So it's probably like 2 to 3 parts white to 1 part black there. And I'm going to be using my large brush here. And you can, if you've got a larger brush, you could use that. Really, you just want one that's large enough to really be able to cover your canvas well. One other thing that you're going to want to have is a water bottle. This is a must if you're working with acrylics, because you're going to want to spray your canvas before you start. So you want to spray your canvas a little bit on the front and the back if you've got a canvas that is not a canvas panel. If you've got a canvas that has an open back, spray the back and the front to start, and then spray your paints so that they stay moist. And as we work, we're going to continue to spray these paints. If we are doing any kind of techniques that do not say dry brush, you're going to wet your brush down. Dry brush techniques, we'll use a brush that's got a little bit more of a texture, that are meant for working dry. But any of your really soft bristled brushes like these, you're going to want to have them wet before you work. Another thing about brushes, just in passing, you'll see different types of brushes. I would say buy the best brushes that you can afford. I use Princeton brushes. I really love them. All of our brushes are Princeton that we use in our videos, and they have good beginner sets. So the beginner sets are like their select line, and then we've got the VelvetTouch is kind of like the next step up, and then the longer handle brushes are the more professional line, and those are the Summit series and Aspen series that I use sometimes too. So but these ones actually are professional quality too, the VelvetTouch. They're just a little bit less expensive, I guess, smaller and everything. All right, let's get going here. Sorry, I keep talking. Haven't painted anything. It's 20 minutes in. Sorry.
Hey, just remember, it's Oak Island night, so...
Okay.
Yeah,
we better get going here.
You got a time limit.
Okay, so I wet my canvas down. It's not super wet, but it's just got a little bit of water in it. wet my brush down, ran it across the side here. I went kind of fast there. Let me do that again. So wet your brush down a little bit before you start, and then just kind of run off the extra water off the cup. And pretty much you're going to do that almost every time you get water in your brush, is just kind of use the side of the cup to kind of pull off the extra water. You don't want it to be dripping off your brush. You want to be able to control the water, and controlling the water is one of the number one things about acrylic painting that you'll want to learn, because that is really important, is controlling the amount of water that you're putting in on your canvas and in your paints. So I've taken some of that water, I've added it to my paint down here. I sprayed it as well, so it got a little bit of water from that. And I'm just going to go ahead and go straight over to my canvas. I'm going to start in the middle and just kind of work my way out. And I'm just going to lay that paint on very quickly. Because I painted the background or sprayed the background, it's going to have a little bit of moisture in there. It's going to give me a little bit more time to work. So painted all of it on there till mostly, it was all gone. You can see that I've kind of feathered out the edges so that there's kind of soft edges to blend back into. Get a little bit of water just on the corner of my brush. I'm not dunking the whole brush in, just kind of touching the tip of the brush into the water, picking up some water and going over to my white and pulling from the side right here so that I'm not like contaminating the whole thing with this color that's on my brush. I'm just picking up a little bit of that white so that I can blend it into this and keep going around. And we're just going to leave this background kind of this blendy look. I'll show you also how you can kind of get a little bit more of a blend with the sponge later. This is how you would do it if you just used a brush. And you'll get kind of some brush strokes and things like that. I really like this look, but if you wanted a little bit more blended out, we can use the sponge too. So if we want it smoother, you can use the sponge. So I'm taking a little bit of the black, just picking up a little bit from the corner edge here, pulling it flat. And I'm always kind of, when I'm loading my brush, I'm always pushing down, flipping it over and pressing down on both sides so that I'm getting both sides really well saturated with paint. That will allow me to go a lot longer when I'm painting. I won't have to reload my brush as often. And it's also pressing my brush flat so that I'm getting a nice straight edge on it. If I was to kind of like be doing like this and pressing down like this, what I'm doing is separating out those bristles if I'm kind of pressing them down straight up and down. So if I'm laying it kind of on its side a little bit and pressing it flat this way, then I'm going to get a nice straight edge on that brush. See how nice that comes to a point? That will give me more control as I'm painting. So I'm talking and my paint is drying as I'm talking. So I want to
we got some questions that are coming up.
Okay, let's go.
Somebody would like to know why use the white gray instead of the burnt umber ultramarine.
I was considering it, but I decided I wasn't going to do a lot of color mixing in this video. I just figured it'd be easier just to talk about the basics for this video. We're just doing black and white, so it's kind of as basic as you can get. Right. We're definitely going to be mixing more colors as we go, though. As we go on in the series, we're going to talk about mixing colors and stuff. Okay. This tutorial is just mostly just and then about how to start,
And probably during the drying break, if you could go into more detail about the difference in the blacks, like the Mars, carbon, ivory, so forth.
Yeah, can definitely do that.
Plus everything else.
Plus everything else. Plus everything else, like what?
Well, you said you were going to talk about some other things while I was out drying.
Oh, I was talking about framing, so I already did that.
You already did that? Oh, okay. Yeah. Check that off the list.
Yep.
Hi, everybody.
Hey. Yeah, sorry. I was going fast, but I knew it was going to take a while to go over all that. So we're really hoping that this series will be one that we can just point our, brand new painters to and just say, this is where to start. Like if you do not know what to do, what to buy, and where to even, begin, that this will be the one to kind of go to, and it'll give you some ideas of, just how I set up my palette and all that kind of thing. All right, so I've got my sponge now. So I've got all the paint down here. Now, one thing is I put this on really fast. So don't worry about it blending really well or anything like that. Put it on fast And then grab your sponge. And I'm just going to grab a little bit of the black and white here. And I'm not saturating it really thick with paint. You can see how very little paint I have on here. I've already got paint on my palette, so I'm not really adding a lot of paint. What I'm just doing is smoothing it out. And see how that does? So I'm using little circular strokes. I'm not pressing down at all. I am just letting that sponge kind of skim on the surface of the canvas because I don't want to pick up any of the paint. I don't want to lift it off the canvas. Now, I would say if you're going to be using a paper towel instead of a sponge for this, let this first layer dry completely, then do a second layer, and then use your sponge on that second layer, and that, or the paper towel on the second layer, because the paper towel is going to wick out your paint off. You like kind of wipe it off your canvas a little bit more than this will. This is not going to pull the paint off your canvas as much as a paper towel would, but they both would work. And just make sure you don't have too much water on there. So that had a little bit of water right there, and it kind of washed that paint right off. I kind of caught it on the corner of that paper, or the corner there with it. All right, so do this quickly. Do this before it starts to dry. If it starts to feel tacky or it starts to kind of like lift your color off, just stop completely. Even if it's starting to lift and it doesn't look good yet, let it dry completely. I'm going to hand it over to Mark. He's going to dry it for us. And then we're going to add a little bit more color to it, or a little bit more paint to it before we finish. Okay, I'm going to move my microphone down again now. Hopefully you're able to hear me. My microphone was real high because I had my camera. It was in my camera shot earlier, so I had to push it up out of the way. So, all right, I'm going to clean out my brush. Now, one thing I would say is about your brushes, acrylics will dry really quickly. So I used to be really bad about leaving my paintbrushes in my water as I worked on other things. So I would finish with this brush and I would just leave it in my water, and I would use another, 3-4 brushes and leave those in the water. And then by the end of the project or whatever, I would have, 5 or 6 brushes in my water, and I would take them out, clean them out. But by the time those first brushes have been sitting in the water for about an hour or so, or however long it is, what will happen is that water will seep all the way through here. This part has got wood in it. The handle's wood in this brush. So the wood probably starts somewhere in here. I don't really know. The bristles come down in here, and then the handle is up in here, and this silver part kind of holds them both together. And that the water will get up into here. It'll go all the way through those bristles and get up into here where the glue is. It'll kind of try to dissolve the glue a little bit. And then it'll also crack your handle. So that wood inside will expand. Paint's not going to expand, so it'll crack that paint, and then you'll end up with a cracked handle. A lot of every single one of the brushes that I used to use would be cracked because I would leave them in my water. So don't do that. Just make sure that you're keeping your brushes moist until you get to clean them out, because you do not want that paint to dry in there. There's paint in here, even if you think it's clean, it's not clean. It's the paint is hiding down in this silver part. It'll get down in here, and even if this top part looks clean, it's not going to be clean down in here, and you need soap to get that out with acrylics. So we'll talk about that a little bit at the end. All right, so we've got our canvas here. We've got nice area here. So I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit more white to this middle part because I feel like it's a little bit dark.
Before you go on to that, I just want to explain, because a question I see came up in chat. We use an old hairdryer.
Yes.
And we use it on the cool setting.
Yes.
And we usually have it about 12 to 14 inches away from the canvas, and moving it back and forth, because you don't want to overheat the acrylic because it is a plastic.
Right.
You just want to dry it to remove the moisture.
Yes.
So don't go full high heat and
hold it
melt
right
it
on there. If you've got a little spot that's not dry, don't hold it straight onto it, that far away, because it's going to melt it and
just be
do
patient.
Weird things. Yeah,
but
be patient.
It
will dry, but it'll take just a few minutes. It's really not that long, but it's worth the wait, being patient. Okay, so I've got my white here. Just adding a little bit of the color around. Now, because this background is dry, I can use my wet side and blend out those edges. So I'm just using the side that's just slightly damp, right? I don't want it super wet, but I just want it slightly damp. See, that's too wet. It was just wiping it off. Don't want it, it's kind of like the perfect in between. Just slightly damp. Okay, so that's good. Going back in with my paint. Okay, and then I'm going to get some of the dark gray and go around the edges of that. Blend that in again. And what's happening is this paint is drying almost as soon as I'm putting it on. So what I'm going to need to do is just add a little bit more paint, either more paint or more water, because it's just drying a little bit quickly. So I'm just going to get a little bit more paint on here. You can see this is a little bit thinner here. Adding a little bit more water to this. And the extra water will just give me extra time to work it, move it around. Okay, there we go. Kind of like spraying the canvas did at first, you know, when we first sprayed it. So, and I really could have left it as is. If if you like your first go around, you may not have to do this. It's trying to lift off that paint, so I need to be careful not to add too much more to it. It's not fully dry underneath. It's not cured, so it takes it about 24 hours to fully cure acrylic paints. So just kind of keep that in mind. I'm going to go ahead and use my brush to add a little bit of this paint. And
that's also depending on where you are. If you're in a very moist climate, then it may be a little bit longer.
Right. Well, when I say cure, it just means that the paint will fully harden. Okay. So it's not dry. It'll be dry to the touch, but for it to fully harden and cure, it can take a full day or so. Even though it's technically dry, it's not cured yet, and so it's not fully bonded to the canvas until it's finished curing. And actually, I'm getting kind of these random black spots in here, which I don't honestly mind. So it's actually kind of working. That's a nice thing about acrylics. And when you're doing this kind of thing, I think it's helpful just to kind of have an open mind and let little things like this happen. I wasn't expecting to have these little black things in here, but I actually kind of like it. So I'm going to leave it. And I'm going to add a few more up in here just to kind of make it, match this area over here. Just adding a little bit of my dark.
And about varnishing. So can they varnish after it's been cured, or do they have to wait longer?
No, just after it's cured. Yeah, just, about a day or 2 days, depending on how thick your paint is, but yeah.
Now, does it help to play the cure in the background while it's... No, sorry.
Honey.
Okay. I mean, we're beginners, so you never know.
No. All right, so I think that I'm happy with that. It's kind of got this mysterious vibe going on. I'm going to let Mark dry this one more time for us. And while he does that, I'm going to go over how to do our line work. So we're going to grab our mixed media journal here. And flip to a page that's open. Here, I've got all my sketches that I'm doing. All right, let me turn it this way. Okay, so this is where I'm going to grab the fluid paint. The fluid paint is just going to be way easier to use. If you don't have craft acrylics like this one, and you're using these or these, just add water to that. You can add quite a bit of water to, especially your student body acrylics. They're not going to have any problems if you add water to them. If you use with the heavy body acrylics, they can have problems with underbinding if you add too much water. So just kind of keep an eye on that. you can add like a medium, like a gloss glazing liquid or like a fluid medium of some sort that'll help that paint stick to the canvas if you're using a heavier body acrylic for this. I'm going to not use that one. I'm going to use this one. All right. So I've laid my 2 thinner paints out to the side, and I'm going to show you for our medium. Here, it just said not to leave that in the water, so let's take it out. I'm going to start with the number 1 round. This will be for our kind of medium lines for our stems, and you can see how thin this paint is. This is how thin you want it. That's why I'm using the thinner paint and not adding the water to that one. So I just really mainly use black and white if you only bought like a couple of craft paints or a couple of the fluid paints, just get black and white. That'll be fine. Maybe brown because I do a lot of trees. But you're going to want to start with water on your brush, obviously. Come down here, add water. By adding water, all I'm going to be doing is just dipping it in here. Like if I was to add water to this, I would dip it in here. I would put it off to the side right here and kind of form a puddle, and then grab a little bit of the paint and add it to that. Don't try to add water to this. You're just going to have a huge mess. So just get a little bit of water off to the side, add a little bit of paint to it until you get it to the fluidity that you want. And then, like I said, if you have a medium you might want to add to it, go ahead and do that. Add your little bit of gloss glazing liquid or something in there to help make that paint stick if you're using the heavy body acrylics. I wouldn't worry as much about the student body acrylics because they're have a little bit more of the binder in, and then the professional are more pigmented. They're just more, the ratio of pigment to binder is higher than any of your other paints. So it has less binder, but it has more pigment. It's kind of a trade-off. Okay, so I've got my paint here. Now, when I picked up my water, I got a little bit of water droplets on the side of my brush here. So I usually just keep a paper towel when I'm doing line work and just run it across there to pick up the extra moisture there, because otherwise it will drip down into your paintbrush. And as you go, you'll end up with a big pool of water as that kind of goes down into your brush. Been there, done that way too many times. Okay, so other thing that you're going to want to do when you're lining is to go left to right. So if you're doing something that's upside down or whatever, turn it so that you can do your stems in the left to right angle. So for this one that's angling this way, I'm going to turn it so that I can get my angle that way and just go off. Now, try to get it so that you can do the whole line in a sweeping one brush stroke. I know this is hard, and it's going to be a little bit tricky. So that's why I'm saying, like, practice on paper. Get the feel for it on paper, and then try it on your canvas. But I would say make sure that you can kind of go all the way across with one brush stroke. So it's a little bit easier for you. You can also kind of pull down, but I find that pulling down, I tend to get wiggly lines. So I feel like if I can just get it in one brush stroke, it's a whole lot easier. It looks better. Now, one other thing that you can do is use a pen. So it's not cheating. If you're a beginner, just use a pen. If this really stresses you out, this is supposed to be fun. So don't let this stress you out. This is actually kind of pretty hard for a first time painting. So I apologize for that, but I did want to keep it at least somewhat easy with the black and white. And the lining is one of the things that you will come across a lot in painting. And so it's good to know how to do it. All right. So one other thing that you can do, that if the round brush is a little bit stressful, is to use an angle brush or a flat brush instead. And I'll show you how to do line with that. Go.
So that brush you were just using was a rounder brush?
Yes, it was a number 1 round.
Number 1 round. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm loading my brush in with this same paint. Got a little bit of water, tapped off the extra, and pressing my brush flat. This is really important. So, and you need a brush that's going to stick together, that doesn't have any stray hairs coming out. So you can use a round brush. You can use a flat brush like we did for our background. So I could use this brush as long as it makes a nice thin line here. This one is a little bit thicker, so its line is going to be a little bit wider than this brush. Let me show you the difference. So here's this brush, and see how wide that goes? So it's quite wide. That I probably would not use that for what we're doing today. It'd be great for like large grasses though. If you were doing like a painting with a lot of grasses and things, that would work really well. This little 1/4 inch angle brush is going to work just fine for us, and it's going to be able to get our lines just about the same thickness as this. Now, one thing is I'm just barely going to set that brush down and then pull. I'm not going to see how far I can go. This was about as far as I could go with that number 1 before I started to run out of paint. But an angle brush like this, it's got twice as much, surface space. It's got, probably 3 or 4 times more brushes, fibers, right? So it's going to hold a lot more paint, so you can go longer with your brush strokes. And I just find it's really easy to do things like this. Now, one thing you do have to watch out for if you're going to be doing your lines with this is that if you're going to the side at all, see how that happened? If you don't turn this brush to face the direction that you're going, you got to always have this side facing the direction that you're going. Otherwise, your line's going to go thick like this. So that's another thing to keep in mind. All right, so once we get these main lines on, then the rest of it's going to be fairly easy. We're going to use our smaller brush for it, but it's all going to be about the same kind of techniques. So
we have some left-handers in chat wondering how they're going to do it.
And
so I said, should we torture you and make you do it left-handed?
I could try it. I don't even know how you would do it, because you'd have to have it. I don't know how you even hold your brush. Do you hold it like that? I guess you do. So I would probably turn my tip so that it's facing away from me. Oh, I don't think I can do this. I'm not going to be able, because I can't see what I'm doing. How do you do it, left-handers? That would be really interesting to learn, wouldn't it? So I'm probably going to have to do it so that I can see where I'm going with it, I would guess. So I'd have to do it. Ooh, look at how thick that is. Okay, so there we go. It's about as good as it's going to get with my left hand. Oh, let me see. Oh, it's not straight though. Well, it's not. It's actually not. That one's not as bad. I see. The difference was I'm really not touching it down very heavy. So okay. So
we're going to clarify.
Beginners. This is probably what you're going to get. Your lines are probably not going to look like that. And that's okay, because you haven't practiced as much as I have. I've been painting for 30 years. So I'm making it look way easier than it is. So if you're first starting with this, it's going to be me with my left hand. And so your lines are probably going to be a little shaky. That's totally fine. Just kind of know that going in. We're not judging.
Yeah, we're going to qualify now from now on. You've been painting 32 years with your right hand.
Right.
And 32 seconds with your left hand.
Exactly. Right. So, yeah.
But that was good, because it shows that, that's what you may get, because we know that a lot of people get frustrated.
And it's going to feel weird. It's going to be a new, and I think that's one thing that beginners don't, I think that you compare yourself to somebody like me or others, that maybe have been painting for several years or months or whatever, have done several paintings, and it can be really frustrating when you see go to a paint party class or something, and the person next to you is doing really, really good, and you're having trouble with it. It's going to come easier to some people, but if it's something that you really want to pursue, I wouldn't let it, being a beginner and not being good at it right away stop you from pursuing it, because it's really rewarding. I love painting. I am terrible at like if I picked up the guitar tomorrow and decided I wanted to paint or to play music, I would not be playing it like my friend Rob McCormick does, that has been playing for 20 something years. It's just a fact, and I wouldn't think that I'm no good at it. For some reason in art, people think, if they, can't do it immediately, perfectly, right off the bat, then they're obviously, no good at it, and they just should give up and not even do it. And sadly, a lot of them have been told that from art teachers, which is really a shame. Okay, so I'm going to use this pencil very, very lightly because I do not want to mark through my paint there and pull it off. I'm just going to draw in a few of these lines. Another thing I didn't mention is that if you wanted to use the pencil, you totally could use a pencil to do your lines. So that's totally fine. That's kind of a mixed media look. It would look a little bit different, but I think it would look really cool. So, just kind of keep that in mind. There's all kinds of options for you. You don't have to do it exactly the way I'm doing it. I'm going to go ahead and add another one up there. And then there's some that are kind of down in the bottom. Okay, so I just kind of wanted to mark those out while I'm doing this, because since I'm turning my canvas so many times, like sometimes it's hard to see where I'm going with it. All right, so I'm going to do my line there. I'm going to do another one up here. Make that a little bit wider right there. So I kind of combine those two stems into one right there. I do this one, turn it, start from here and just go down. And one thing that you can do that will help also is to look at where you're going. Look just past, kind of like when you're driving a car, you don't look right at the road in front of you. You're looking just a little bit in front. So that'll help you kind of keep your lines straight if you're looking just slightly ahead of where you're going. And keep doing that as you paint. There we go. So we've got our lines. Again, this may not go as smoothly as mine did. You can also do these in small sections. So you could draw that in, and you could do your lines in like little baby steps, and you could just kind of sketch them on in little baby steps. They might not look like as, smooth, but that's totally fine. It's just a, artistic choice. Nobody's going to know the difference. Hopefully your friends are just going to be amazed at your painting and, cheer you on. Let's hope everybody's friends and family are that supportive of new hobbies. Not everybody gets that benefit. I know I heard a lot of horror stories about people who get, criticized as beginners, and I really think that's a shame, because when you're very first starting out, I feel like all you really need is a cheerleader to just cheer you on. There's time for critiques later. Once you've been painting for a while, and once you kind of have some skills, are comfortable with your painting, how to manipulate the paint, how to do some techniques, and, have done a few paintings, and then you're like wanting to maybe work on perfecting them a little bit more. That's when like critiques can help, help you grow. But when you're very first starting, you don't need to hear negativity. I don't feel like. I don't think it helps beginners learn. I think it's just discouraging more than anything. So I'm all for just giving pep talks to my beginners and cheering them on. All right, so I've mixed up a black it's got a little bit of white in here. I've mixed a little bit of the white into my black right here off to the side. Got a little bit of a lighter gray right there too. And I've switched over to the 18-aught liner brush, and I need to make sure I start with it completely clean. I don't want paint globbed up onto it here, because I was mixing with it, so it had some paint kind of globbed onto it. I don't want that. So I'm going to run it through my puddle here, and it should be a puddle. It should be very fluid. And then I'm going to twist it just a little bit so that paint kind of runs through and comes to a point for me. All right. And then from the end of these flowers, I'm going to do some smaller lines, and I'm just going to hold it really close right here. So I'm holding it right up to that, and I'm setting my hand down so that the only part that's touching is the very, very tip of the brush. And that way I can kind of control where that line is going. It's going to feel like if you can write your name with a pencil and you can hold the brush just right, then you will use this use your pinky here to support your hand so that it's not pressing down too hard, and just kind of, I don't know, go quickly. I find that going quickly, like I was saying about here, going quickly is a little bit better. Even if it's not exactly, see how I pressed down a little bit hard there? That's what's going to happen if you, it kind of caught the canvas there as I was going up. So I got a little bit of thick spot there, but that's fine. What I can do is go back in here. I'm just going to do this, but you might not want to. Go back in here and add another little line right next to it so that it looks like I meant to do that. Okay, do a few of them a lot thicker, and that's it. So I'm kind of just doing like this, what is it? Kind of a bowl shape almost. Oh, we're only an hour in. We're good. We're doing good. I figured this to be about an hour and a half, and I think it's going to be about right. So again, you could use a pen for this. You don't want to use a brush. I'm using the thinner, like a little bit grayer paint also is a little bit more forgiving than the straight up black, the really dark black. And then some of these lines that are in the far back are actually a little bit lighter. So I'm going to get some of the lighter gray and do some of these with even a little bit lighter gray, and just kind of sort of like a starburst, but there's some that are the back of the flower and some that are at the front of the flower. So we've got our flower like this, it's coming up like this, and there's even some in the middle here. But so what we're seeing is like this. So some of these in the front are going to look a little shorter, and some in the back are going to be a little bit longer. So that's what we're seeing here with these flowers. Mm-hmm. So you're seeing both front and back. So maybe this one's in the front and this one's in the back of the flower. And then maybe, you know, we've got one here that's kind of in the middle, and they're all kind of overlapping. So these don't have to be all the same size and length.
Which brush are you using?
The 18-aught round, or yeah, 18-aught liner,
18
short liner.
Short liner.
Short liner, yes. Okay, so there we go. And then I'm going to get a little bit of the darker black, and like right here where they all kind of meet up, I'm just going to thicken up that bottom of the stem just a little bit and darken that up, because it's a little bit thicker where it kind of meets that line right there. I'm going to do that with this one too, make sure that I've got it kind of nice and dark and right there. Okay. This is really pretty. I hope this isn't too, I don't know. I don't think this is too difficult. And I really feel like lines, if you can get this right off the bat, then you can do anything, you know? So I would suggest just really working on this, like work on paper until you get a feel for this. It may take you a couple of days before you're ready to go to canvas, and that's okay. Like, keep on practicing, just keep on doing it. You can do it. Like, it may take a few days to get the feel for it. And if you're like, my lines are too thick, then work on your pressure. Maybe move your hand up a little bit so that less of the brush is even able to touch the canvas, and make it so that you just can't press down harder on it, and get your lines too thick. So I think thick lines are the thing that, I see the most often. And a lot of times it's either the thickness of the paint to begin with is too thick, because you cannot get thin lines with a thick paint. I'm going to make this a little bit longer so it's not overlapping this one so much. You just won't be able to get your lines thin enough if you've got a thick paint. So let's do this. I'm gonna show you the difference here using the heavy body acrylics, same brush, heavy body acrylics. I'm just gonna load my brush up the same way, but I'm using the thick paint. And let's see how far of a line we can get. And you see how it's breaking up on me? It's not smooth. It's got all these little gaps in it. And then if I went back to go in and fill in the gaps, then I'm going to have to press down a little bit harder. And as I press down harder to get those gaps filled in, more and more paint's going to go on the canvas, and my line's going to get super thick. And there's absolutely no way to get a thin line with this thick paint. There's no way to do it, not even with the super thin brush. So do yourself a favor and make sure that you are thinning out your paint to a very, very thin fluid, ink-like milk. You shouldn't feel any resistance, so that when you do this line, I'm going to do it right next to it. See that? It didn't start breaking up until about right here, and that's just because my paint started running out of my brush. Because it's a thin brush and it doesn't hold up a lot of paint, But see the difference? Okay. Let's keep on going here. All right. And I will have a traceable for this one. I do have it. It's already up. I drew it out this afternoon. So if you want to use a traceable for this, I would suggest using white instead of black. So use a white graphite instead of the black graphite. That will be less obvious and it will be easier to paint over. And black graphite, the water soluble graphite that I like to use is called Floral. This is the brand. I'll show you the package. Comes with black, white, blue, red, and yellow. So I would use the white graphite, or it's called graphite, I guess. Or no, there's the white. This is the graphite. The graphite's the dark one. The dark one, it will erase, but it doesn't erase as completely as the white one would. So we'll just say probably be less obvious if you used the white graphite for it. Okay. And I would definitely use the Floral brand. Don't use copy paper. Copy paper has wax in it. Wax will resist the paint. It's not going to paint over well. You're going to have problems. So don't use regular copy paper like what we used when I was typing. I had to use that a lot. I was really bad at typing.
Wow.
I had a job in high school where I had to use copy paper and like on the duplicates, so I'd have like a really clean like front sheet, and then I'd have my back sheet was also always like all messed up with lots of edits, and the copy paper didn't lie. It just everything that happened showed it was not forgiving. Okay, so there we go. So we've got our lines in here. Not too bad so far, hopefully. Fingers crossed. All right. All right, so I'm going to go back to my thicker paint. I'm going to get a little bit of my white. And I've got my angle brush now. Got my 1/4 inch angle brush again. So we're going to do the little frosty bits on the tips of the flowers. So what I'm going to do is I'm pretty much going to use white, actually. I got a little bit of the black in there, but I don't think I'm going to need much. I think I want to use mainly just the white. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to separate out the bristles a little bit. So I'm going to pounce my brush. Don't do it too hard. You don't want to abuse your brush, but you just want to gently kind of tap it so that those bristles kind of spread out a little bit. I don't know if you can see that. So they're spread out just a little bit. And what that'll help me do is just kind of get a softer, more kind of frosty look to my bristles. And I am going to have a little bit kind of a medium gray, like very light gray. I've got a little bit too much paint in my brush too, so I'm just wiping that off. So some of these I'm going to do a little bit softer, that may be a little bit farther away. And I'm just going to kind of put these little tips on my tops of my frosty flowers there. And really, honestly, what I could have done is done like half of the back stems, and then painted this, and then done the stems over the top, because some of these maybe your line's gonna cross over. So just kind of be aware of that, and like if you don't want it to cross over, I'm gonna do one right here. See, some of these I didn't do enough of the stems, so I'm just gonna do a few more. And I'm mainly just kind of doing them like this. They're just kind of spreading out like from the stem here. They're just kind of spreading out like that. So kind of like little fingers sticking out. And just tapping in little arcs. Like that. All right. Get some white, and I'm going to use a little bit more white on top of some of these. Right, and then I'm going to go back in here with my liner and make sure I put a line for that little guy there. Okay. To keep on going. What are you laughing at?
You suddenly got quiet.
Oh, yeah, I'm thinking. All right, so this one's actually underneath this one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over the top of that. Now, if you want to, what you can do is wait to do this stem until you do the flowers and then do your stem over the top. I'm going to do that, and then I'm just going to paint my stem back over. Now, if this stresses you out, just do, like I said, or just don't overlap it at all, or make this one be in front of it. It's fine too. You can make this one be in front of that one. That's probably an easier solution. All right.
And
if it doesn't show up, then it's probably it's too close to the same value. So just like go a little bit darker or a little bit lighter. Either one's fine. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, for our beginners also, that if you're watching the replay of the video, if you click in the YouTube window, you can change speeds. So you can speed it up or slow it down or something. Mm-hmm. I know a lot of people have used that in the past. And obviously, pause and rewind and all that stuff. But something that a lot of people don't know.
Yes. Yeah, you can change the speed. You can listen to us talking really fast, like chipmunks.
Or really slow, like we've been
like we're like
hitting the paint water.
Exactly. Yeah. Just didn't do quite enough little stems here. So as I'm going, I'm realizing I missed a few there. So I'm just adding a few. Just tap, tap, tap. So we're almost done. This is like really one of the last things we're going to do. And then we'll splatter, which is one of my favorite things. I'm going to go ahead and just make this one on top of this one. That'll give us a little bit of depth and dimension, so why not? And there are some that are kind of like down low here, so you can kind of do some that are sort of in between or maybe like a little bit farther away back, in the background, so they don't all have to be in focus. Some of them in our picture are kind of, way back in here, so I'm going to go ahead and just kind of do some little phantom ones that are a little farther away. But basically, I'm just tapping my brush down. I'm not really doing anything fancy. I'm just kind of setting it down and turning it. So it's just doing these little, I'm just like letting the edge do the work for me. So I'm not drawing it or doing anything fancy. I'm just tapping it, and making sure that my bristles are sticking together enough. They're not like super splayed out. They're sticking together enough that I'm getting these thin lines with it. And just kind of pivoting it so that they all kind of start in the same little spot and the right along that stem there. Just kind of keep turning it so that the back end of it is touching the middle part of the line there. Okay. And this is art, so like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect. You can kind of go out, outside the lines. It doesn't have to be exactly like mine, so you can do your own thing with it. I get people ask me questions all the time, like, can I do XYZ with my painting? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Like, it's your painting, it's not mine. So I'm just showing you how I did mine, but there is no rules against being creative and doing your own thing. Go for it.
gonna say,
more power to you.
have you been to an art gallery lately?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. All right. One thing I do see that I'm going to go ahead and add is just a few little extra spikes with this black. I'm going to go to the stem and kind of just tap in the bottom of the stems here and add just a little bit of black and maybe just a few little flicks of the brush. Let's go and zoom way in so they can see what I'm talking about here, hon. Okay, so we've already got our lines here. Let's do it on this one. So I've got my lines here. I've got my line coming up to it. I'm going to just tap a little bit on the bottoms of these, right? Just to add a little like connection there. And then on a few of them, I'm just going to use my brush and just flick up little lines into just a little bit. It doesn't have to be super detailed, but just a little extra detail will go a long way there. Now this is totally optional, so if if you're like done doing little lines, just move on. You don't have to do this part. It's I get it. Like if you're like, these are stressing me out and I'm so done doing little tiny lines, then just leave this part out.
There'll be no fines.
No
There'll
fines
be no
for
points deducted.
No, exactly.
We won't be coming to your house and counting the number of lines.
No.
Well,
This is supposed to be fun. Like I said, the reason that I got into doing teaching is just because I enjoy it so much. I love painting. I wanted to share it with other people. I love getting to see people like kind of come to life and realize, hey, I can do this. Like, it's one of the best feelings for me. Just personally, I really, I know how much painting and art has helped me. I had 3 boys and stay-at-home mom, and painting like literally kept my sanity while they were little. I would wait for nap time and grab those paints and get them out and have my own mom time, my me time. That was my escape time to just kind of do something for me, It's turned into a job and I love doing it, but it mainly was a selfish thing to start with.
The only fault in your explanation there is the fact that you're still painting and they're grown. It must be me that you're trying to escape from.
The only one left in the house is Mark. So you
and I'm
draw
still
your own
painting.
conclusions. No, Spencer's still here. He's not in any trouble though. He's in college. He started college not his second semester of college today and yesterday. So it's being very interesting with COVID and everything. Most of his classes are at home. So he had his first class at 8 a.m. in bed this morning. He said he just pulled his laptop up, sat in his lap, and did class. I don't think he's hating it. Good for you. You don't have to get ready and go anywhere. Just roll. Not even rolling out of bed. Just grabbing the laptop and going. It's funny. You gotta make the best of it. I'm just glad he's wanted to stay at home. I enjoy having him around. He's a good guy. It's gonna be weird when all of the kids are gone and it's just you and me and the pet, son. What?
Doesn't sound like you're looking forward to it.
I'm just saying it's gonna be weird. I don't know.
No,
It's
yeah,
empty nesters, It's like how long we started when we were 21 and 23 having kids. So we're gonna be 51 and 53 this year. So 30 years of having kids around. It's you get used to it.
Yes, that is true.
All right, so just going through here. Sorry, sharing personal stuff there.
So which brush are you using right now?
This is the 1/4" angle.
Man, your viewers are getting good. They can guess what brush that is.
Good. All right, well, hopefully I'm going over this enough quickly, or not, not too fast. Are we doing okay?
Oh yeah, you're doing great.
Okay. All right. I think that I really wanted this series because I really haven't ever done my classes this way. I've always just kind of jumped into a project and showed you. So, I kind of really want to make these videos ones that, we can refer back to for years. And for anybody who is just very first starting out painting, I can just say, okay, start here and then go to the next one and then this next one. And we're just going to build on the techniques as we go so that we cover everything. And then, we can go to the, more complicated projects and you'll have all these skills and techniques already built up. So you'll be more confident in when you do them, that.
What did you say?
Do them. No judgment. When you do them, you'll be ready to tackle some more complicated techniques and things. So that's the goal, at least. And we're going to just do them until we feel like we've covered everything. So if you guys continue to, give us questions and say we want to go over, this, or I still don't understand how to do XYZ, then we'll just keep on doing them, So I'm definitely going to be looking at the comments on these and just seeing what you guys want to see. But I did a poll last year, and the number one thing was beginner techniques. So I listened, and that's why we're doing this series. So it took me a while to get it organized and figured out, but that's what we're doing. Okay, so I'm just going over the stems here, and I'm tapping in some of this frost on the stems because I'm seeing some of this frost on the stems. And this will cover a multitude of sins on your lines too. So if you've got lines, like someplace on your lines where you're like, I just really don't like it, well then just use this to cover it up. Right?
Yep, that's the line that Adam Savage likes to use when he's doing his model making.
What does he say?
He says, doing this technique or painting it this way or do something will cover a multitude of sins.
Yep. So we got our lines there. Let's go ahead and finish our last little baby one here and we'll be done.
Plus splatters.
And plus splatters, yes.
Splatters.
Sorry. Yes, splatters. Oh yeah, we won't forget the splatters. Is Dave watching tonight, or is it too late for him?
It's uncanny.
Past his bedtime.
He spoke up in chat literally like minutes right after you mentioned splatters. I think you woke him up.
He's like, "What? Splatters?"
Huh? What? He heard you say it. He was probably out in the yard or something.
He's got a splatter alert on his phone. He just has it he has it set so that it's like when we say it, it's just gonna like a little alarm goes off. Doot, doot, doot. Like splatters. Yes. I understand, Dave. I'm there. I'm with you.
Instead of severe weather, it's splatters.
It's yeah, exactly. Exactly. Alrighty. So I'm going to grab, for my splatters, you can do it a couple different ways. You can use a toothbrush or I find, just basically something with stiff bristles. The stiffer bristles I find really flick the paint well. So I'm going to use the thinned out paint. It's going to move faster or quick, come off the brush easier. So you need to, if you're using your thicker paint, just like your liner, you really want it about the same thickness as we've been doing the lines with. So get some fluid paint here. And I grayed it out just a little bit so it's not like super bright in your face white because it's going to be, actually, I need to do
new paint color.
Super bright in your face white. Nice, I like it.
I'm
So we
writing
got
that
dirty
one
white,
down.
super bright in your face white. I like it. Had to add our little black flicks to those. All right. And I feel like some of these probably could use a little bit brighter white, so I'm just going to go ahead and get a little bit of that super bright in your face white and put it in here. Just a few little, like really bright highlights of white, like little frosty tips there.
Dave has decided that eating is not very important.
Nice.
So
He's holding off on dinner to...
Yes.
Thank you, Dave. I'll make it worth your time. I hope.
And this is where you can use the slow motion also on the playback.
All right, so we've got our paint in our fan brush or our toothbrush, either way. If you're using a toothbrush, I hold it in my fist with just the very tip of it over and use my thumb and run it like this. And wherever the opposite direction is, so I'm pulling in this direction, the paint's going to go in that direction. So it's going to come straight off the tip in that direction. So you're going to want to point it straight down at your canvas and run your tooth. If I do it like this, it's going to go straight at Mark. So just warning you. So, make sure that you're pointing it straight here. Now, so when I'm holding my fan brush, I'm going to hold it perpendicular to or parallel to my canvas and hit it in a perpendicular motion. So I'm going to hit it so that motion is going towards my canvas and just tap, tap, tap. And if I've got my paint thin enough that you should have barely any pressure on here, and the paint will just come right off the brush. See how fun that is? Got a little snow coming down on our little frosty branches. All right, and that's about all we're going to do today. If you want to, you could add like a little bit bigger snowflakes. Let me get a Q-tip or a cotton swab. Sorry, cotton swab. Cotton swab. Get a little cotton swab. Run it so it's. I'm gonna get a little bit wet so that I can smooth it out a little bit. There we go. Get just a little bit of paint on there, and we can do a few like a little bit larger snowflakes coming down. Keep it random. There we go. All right. And then I'm going to go ahead and use the pen to sign it with. And if you want to get fancy and use your new skills with the liner brush and sign your name that way, go for it.
Now, the tip that you give when you sign is that you're leaving a finger space below.
Yes.
And why do you do that?
1/4 inch or so, because when you frame it, it's going to overlap your canvas about that much. So I leave it, a little bit up. Thank you for saying that, hon.
You're welcome.
Super cat.
Yes, we had a super chatter tonight.
Hey.
And he super chatted before the left-handed challenge. And tonight's super chat is from Andy. There was no special message, but later on he said it was worth it.
Thank you, Andy.
Watching left-handed chat. And
That's great.
I think because he's left-handed also.
Nice.
Yeah,
I feel for you, Andy. I don't know how you do it. It's hard. The struggle is real. All right, so I'm looking at my reference photo. So one thing I did notice is that my values are all pretty medium. Like even my background values, there's not a lot of depth or like not a lot of contrast with, like in our reference photo, there's a lot of white here. It's almost bright, super bright white. And then this part is almost black here and here. So what I could do, I wish I had done this before I splattered. If I had noticed it, I could have done it. I could have added just a little bit of black with our sponge to the edges. Let me see. That might be close enough. This may be a really bad idea. So we'll just see how it goes. I'm going to use the thinned out paint and my straight black, just a little bit of it. And I'm going to really wipe it off mostly. But I've got a damp. The paint is very, very thin. And I'm just going to rub it over the top. Oh, I just wiped off my signature. I literally did. I rubbed off my signature.
And if you're new to Angela's channel, when she says she's done, she's not done.
No, I'm not.
So
I'm sorry.
don't go turn on dinner or anything. Cause we don't know how long we'll be here.
Technically do this before you do anything else. It's probably, we probably should have added a third layer or just, done the little bit. But see how that's much more dramatic. I like it. Ooh. So we'll just add a little bit like of a vignette with this along the sides of our canvas here. And the key is that it's very, very fluid paint, and I'm keeping it moving. What will happen with acrylics, and I didn't mention this before with the background, but they do dry really quickly. So if they start to get sticky, you just really need to just not mess with them. You need to stop and let them dry completely, and then you can keep going. So as I said, I would not do this at this point. If when check yours before you do your flowers, and make sure that you've got this dark area really, really dark on the corners, if that's what you want, before you put on the rest of your. I'm just going to go ahead and wipe off my signature completely.
Yeah, because somebody asked if you could mention the name of the pen again when you do it. So,
and the thing with the pen is that you can see how it wiped off. That's because that pen needs to cure just like the paint does. So I've had people say that they varnished and the pen ran, and that just tells me that that ink did not have time to cure. So I don't have that trouble with mine usually, but I always leave my paint, my canvas to set for about 2 days. So I would say that if you're going to be using ink like this is permanent ink. It's water soluble. It's waterproof ink, so it should not wipe off when I painted over it or when you varnish over it. But it was not. Even though it was probably slightly, superficially dry, just like I was talking about with my paint, it wasn't completely cured, and it probably needs, I would say, probably a day or two to cure completely before you'd want to varnish over it or do anything like that over it.
And what's the name of that pen again?
Pigma Sakura FB. Basically, you just want to get a India ink, permanent, waterproof. Those are the two things to light fast, permanent, and waterproof. The Sharpies, like my, super cheap, everybody's got these. They're permanent, they're waterproof, but they're not light fast. So they will fade like within days if you leave them out in the sun. This won't do that. So if you want it to be more permanent, don't use Sharpie. Okay. Whew. That was fun. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Mm-hmm. If you want the traceable, we've got it available at patreon.com/AngelaFineArt there. He's got the link there. Also, if you want to sign up for our newsletter, we're going to have, special perks, and we're probably going to have a guide. I'm talking with my social media helper, Brennan. He is going to be working with me on getting together a little booklet, and that'll probably come out towards the end, probably this summer sometime. Hopefully, fingers crossed. But it'll have what to buy, just all the stuff that we're going to be going over in these videos, and they'll also have links to all the videos with photographs and things like that in the little booklet kind of ebook thing. So if you sign up for the newsletter, that will be something we'll have information about for our folks in the newsletter. I'm not sure if we're going to charge. I don't expect to charge for it. I don't think so. But if you want information about it, it'll be on the newsletter. We may make it part of our Patreon $2 level or something like that. I'm not sure yet, but
what level of Patreon is the picture available? Is that the $5 level?
The $5 level. The $5 level will have a photograph of the finished painting and the reference photo and the traceable. Okay. And then the $2 level has just the traceables. Okay. The $5 level also has the bonus video, which we will be doing on Sunday, which is, if you want to show it, it should be up in the bonus video image there. Yeah, we're doing you have to take the Tuesday one off. Undo Tuesday. Yeah, there we go. We're going to be painting the train. So that'll be our Sunday bonus video for January 2021. And it also includes all of the reference photos and things like what Mark said, the $5 level. They're going to get that extra bonus video for this month. And it includes all the other bonus videos that we've ever done.
And over when you were talking about signing up for the newsletter, you send out each month a picture of all the videos you're going to be doing.
Yes, I do. I send out a schedule every month, and I also, at the end of the month, I send out a photograph of all the finished paintings too. So that's also in the newsletter. So if you want to keep up with what we're doing, that's the best way to do it, is get on our newsletter. We send it out once a week. It's not spammy, I promise. We just send it out once a week to those who are interested in keeping up with what we're doing. All right. Thanks, guys. That was fun.
Yeah,
just right at 1.5 hours. I'm like really proud of myself. I did it. I'm always like notorious for going way late, way later than I thought I would be. So I judged it right today. Yay. Yay for me. All right. Thanks, guys. Have a great day. And hope to see you Saturday. We're going to be painting. What are we painting? Oh, some skis. It'll be fun. A nice, actually probably a beginner level type painting. We're going to be painting a simple mountain with some skis there on Saturday. So hope you join us for that too. And next week, we're going to be working on some birds and a sunset. And we'll talk about color mixing, and we'll be going over how to use traceables. So hope you join us for that too. All right. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.